Ye Old Newsroom, 1740, the hard year. How ordinary Britons survived a winter without mercy. When rivers froze, bread vanished, and disease claimed the summer, everyday people carried Britain through its darkest year. There are years in the 18th century that seemed to lie quiet on the page, and then there are years like these, 1738 to 1740, when the world itself feels unsettled, as though the season, the weather, and the temper of nations all shifted at once. Across Britain and beyond, the news arrives in stark contrasts. A mariner steps before Parliament with a pickled ear in a jar, its grisly presence setting the country on the path to war. A man long presumed lost to Barbary pirates finally reappears after 23 years in captivity, stepping into Gibraltar Bay as though returned from another life. And overhead, the cold deepens. For as these stories drift through the papers, an altogether different headline begins to press upon the kingdom: the Great Frost. The winter of 1739 to 1740 settles like a hard hand across Europe. Rivers seize into ice, mills fall silent beneath their frozen burden, snowdrifts rise so high they swallow entire byroads. In Newcastle, the Tyne becomes a fairground of necessity, where cooking fires, football matches, and makeshift tents stand on ice thick enough to bear them. Life continues, but only just, in a world that more closely resembles Norway than England. And amid these larger forces, the human dramas of the age unfolded with startling closeness. Richard Turpin, notorious, boastful, impossible to overlook, is unmasked at last and carried to the gallows with theatrical bravado. Elsewhere, villagers contend with famine, failed harvests, and the rising price of bread. Letters out of Ireland speak of people dying by the roadside, entire districts slipping into silence from hunger and cold. Between such tragedies, the newspapers continue to print the ordinary texture of life. Advertisements for meat markets and cookbooks, stern warnings to poachers, quarrels over credit, miraculous escapes, and crime both petty and profound. Together, these fragments reveal a Britain caught between spectacle and survival, a country adjusting to hardship, gossiping over daring villains, and watching the weather with growing fear. Tonight, we walk through these years as they appeared to those who lived them, moment by moment, notice by notice, through frostbitten fields, crowded jails, noisy fairs on frozen rivers, and the quiet dread of homes where food had run out. This is the Chronicle of 1738 to 1740, years of cold, courage, calamity, and the strange resilience of ordinary people. Chapter 1. A World on the Edge of Frost. Setting the scene, weather hardship, and the fragile balance of early 18th century life. The closing years of the 1730s settled over Britain with a heaviness few living could remember. This was a land where comfort was narrow and misfortune wide, and where a single season, too cold, too wet, too long, could tip an entire region into hardship. The newspapers of the day, thin and uneven little sheets, painted the picture in brief but telling strokes. Week after week, they recorded failing crops, hungry towns, and the deepening anxiety of people who understood that nature, for all its beauty, could turn upon them without warning. Winter arrived early in 1739, and with it came the kind of cold that seeped into everything, into the soil, into the beams of houses, into the bones of ordinary families who had little enough fuel to begin with. Even the rivers began to slow their surfaces, stiffening day by day, until entire stretches froze solid. Coastal winds swept into with a sharpness that split doors, rattled loose window panes. The growing frost was not simply weather, it was a force that shaped how people moved, how they worked, and whether they ate at all. Fancy more Victorian seances, scandalous trials, and newspaper absurdities that make modern headlines look tame? We've got over 750 stories tucked away on Patreon, ad-free, early, and exclusive.